So, multiplayer games. What a nightmare this genre has become, particularly over the last few years, infested with stuff like microtransactions, loot boxes, shady DLC practices. I don't know if you guys have been following the more recent Destiny 2 debacle. I mean, pretty much since launch, this game has been having problems, but Jesus Christ, what are those guys thinking? Going to the point of like throttling XP, effectively making some of the grinding in the game useless. Great idea, by the way, in your game centered around loot grinding. Make grinding useless. I'm sure those sorts of decisions will really turn things around for that game. We are seemingly getting constantly burned by these multiplayer games as they try to nickel and dime us, and focus shifts from actually making a solid experience towards how can we find more things to monetize. And the games are suffering both in terms of quality and obviously as a result sales. The Battlefront 2 story, that was a big deal throughout the end of last year. Players drew a line in the sand and said enough is enough, and effectively buried this title. And the game began garnering such bad press that Papa Disney even had to step in, and EA ended up pulling the loot box system from the game, at least temporarily, but the damage had already been done. The game was beyond saving at that point. They lost the trust, the faith of the gaming community. I mean, I don't know how much of that EA had to begin with, but whatever they had left, they certainly lost most or all of it at this point. And that's really what I want to talk about today. Are you starting to lose faith in multiplayer-focused games in general? Like myself, it's honestly starting to get hard for me to get excited whenever I see a new trailer, gameplay, or whatever for something that is going to be online or multiplayer focused, because my brain instantly now goes to the point of, okay, looks fun, but how are they going to try to screw me when the game actually comes out? And if many other people are starting to feel the same way, I think we really need a turning point to happen in the multiplayer space. We've been going through this period where people have been claiming that single-player games are pretty much dead. Hyperbolic. I know there's still plenty of great, fantastic single-player games out there, but so many games nowadays feel the need to, in some way, tack on a multiplayer aspect, again as a way to sap as many dollars as possible out of the players' wallets. And I'm not saying this is specifically a multiplayer problem either. Some of this has been oozing into the single-player space with lame DLC practices and such, but multiplayer is clearly where this is the biggest issue. There are very few games in my experience which don't try to get as much money out of you as possible. And to be very clear, I'm not saying you can't have microtransactions and DLC and stuff like that, but they have to make sense and they have to be of high quality. I'm willing to pay, $20, $40, hell, $60. I'm willing to pay another $60 for DLC if it's good, if it's awesome, if it really adds $60 in quality experience to the game for me. I don't want to say never, but I almost never see these DLCs actually feel like they're worth the value you paid for. And this has really turned me into a single player sort of player. I say a lot of times in my videos, I'm not a big multiplayer guy, and it wasn't always like this. I used to love playing games online with my friends. Hell, like Halo 3, geez, late nights playing that game when I first started college, it was constant. Those original Xbox Live days blew my mind. In fact, when it comes to game time, like how much time spent actually playing a single title, I don't think any game will ever touch Phantasy Star Online for me. I played that on the Dreamcast, the GameCube, Xbox, and the PC. Between all the versions of the same game, pretty much, I've definitely put thousands of hours into it. Just thinking about it kind of makes me want to download Blue Burst, like no joke. So yeah, I love playing games online with my friends and that, but just seeing the same shit over and over again, it kills me. Even my ability to get excited about some of this stuff, like this new Anthem game coming out. This was supposed to be like BioWare's big bombshell at this past E3. And you know what? If this was like 7 or 8 years ago and I saw this exact demo, I'd be losing my mind. I'd be calling my friends like, dude, you gotta see this, get ready because this is gonna be our lives when this game drops. But now, after games like Destiny, like The Division, they also reveal and get hyped up pretty much the exact same way this game did. You know, oh, deep multiplayer questing and adventuring with your friends, lose yourself in the world. Whatever. Then you actually play the games and they're about as deep as a frickin' puddle. You know, I play for like a dozen hours before the game has me doing the same quests over and over again. Oh, but you can have more fun if you get some new gear from our loot boxes. Or just wait a month for our $20 DLC and you'll be able to add 2 more quests to your rotation. Now get freaking hype. And that's also why the player base lately, I feel, has been just dropping off a cliff so fast for many of these releases. Because I certainly don't think I'm the only one reacting this way. The only one seeing these exact same patterns over and over again for these big budget games. And I'm not trying to write off all multiplayer games or games that have a multiplayer focus. You know, I've mentioned obviously I like a lot of Nintendo stuff, both in the way they've handled online and DLC lately in games, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Splatoon 2. I mean, those damn Splatoon games get tons of updates, and they're all free. We're only days away from the release of Monster Hunter World, which I actually have high hopes for. I'm, like, praying to the gaming gods that that game turns out great. I've been kind of trying to avoid it. I played a little bit of the beta, just to make sure, like, it seemed like it felt good, but I've been kind of trying to avoid it and just, like, really sink my teeth into it when it comes out. And I feel like given the series history, I'm doubtful they'll totally screw that game up just out of nowhere. So it's not like I'm trying to say the multiplayer party is over, all hope is lost. In fact, support the games you feel do a good job and continue to bash games like Battlefront 2 that aim to take advantage of the players, and I think you're going to see companies take notice and reconsider the future of how these games should play. But as long as there's enough people buying the crap and supporting it, they'll continue to make it. And it kind of makes me sad because, again, when I was younger, I figured like by now, all these years later, I'd be playing some of my favorite games of all time at this point in terms of multiplayer games. I mean, you'd think by now the multiplayer experience would be so refined, so perfected, but it honestly feels like they've been largely going downhill, especially over the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. I don't know. I hope things get better. I really do. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on the current trend in multiplayer games in the comments. That's really why I'm making this. You know, are you also starting to lose faith in these sorts of games? You know, where did you think multiplayer games would be at this point? Maybe when they were in their infancy, did you think this is where we'd be? As always, I'm John Zakari, and thanks for watching.